What's up, guys, and welcome back to another man versus deer video. In today's video, we're going to take a deep dive into the gear that you need to get started bow hunting. Let's get after it.
This is probably one of my bigger bucks to date.
Guys, I cannot believe that actually worked.
Looks like a double long shot. It was hot, really hot.
Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you're new to the channel, make sure you smack that subscribe button. Definitely like the video, and for sure leave a comment before you leave. I absolutely love hearing from you guys. The topic of today's video is bow hunting gear, and specifically we're going to take a look at the gear you need if you've just gotten into bow hunting. This video is for someone who's just starting to dip their toes into the world of bow hunting, and they're doing some research on what gear they need to get started. That's what this video is going to help you with. I'm going to assume for the purposes of this video that you've already got your bow and arrow situation ironed out. There is enough content for that topic there that should be its own separate video, and we're probably going to do that. So this video is basically going to focus on all the gear you need minus your bow and arrow. So there's a lot of items that we're going to have to break down and dissect in here, but I've managed to kind of group them into three different groups. And that first group is clothing, the second group is going to be the climbing system that you use, and the third group is going to be the contents of your hunting pack. The first thing we're going to talk about is clothing. And we're going to talk specifically about camouflage clothing. Now, you've got an early season, you've got a mid-season, you've got a late season, and your clothing is going to change depending on the temperature. Meaning the clothes you wear are going to be lighter when it's hot out, and they're going to be heavier when it's cold out. The commonality that all of your clothes have when you're bow hunting is concealment or camouflage. You see, in bow hunting, the whole goal is to get within 20 to 30 yards of that animal so you can put an ethical shot on them using a bow and arrow. It's very hard to do that, and it's very hard to conceal the movements that you're going to need to make without implementing some type of concealment in your clothing via camouflage. So we're going to break this down a little bit further and talk about the actual items you need for the clothing. You're going to need a good set of boots. I personally like the rubber boots. There's pull-up boots, traditional hiking boots. I mean, there's tons of different kinds that you can have. I personally like the rubber boots because they're all weather to me. I wear them in the summer, I wear them in the winter. They keep my feet warm, they keep my feet dry. They're a good go-to option to have. You're definitely going to want a good set of camo pants. You're definitely going to want a camo shirt or jacket. And then two of the more important items on this list are going to be your gloves and your face mask. These are the biggest pieces of skin that you're going to want to hide. If you're in a tree and a deer's looking up, it's going to be drawn to this if it's not covered, or drawn to this if it's not covered. So your face mask and your gloves are two of the more important pieces in my opinion, especially in early and late bow season when those deer are kind of skittish. Something I do with my gloves is I actually cut the trigger finger out of them. That way I can still operate my camera, I can still mess with my phone, but the rest of my hand is covered, except this one finger here and this one finger here. All right, guys, the next thing we're going to jump into is your climbing method. And we cannot talk about the climbing method before we talk about the climbing safety. So anytime you're in a tree, you need to be in a tree stand harness. Most tree stands or climbing systems that you buy are going to come with a tree stand harness, and you need to practice putting it on and using it before you actually get in the tree. But a tree stand harness is basically a harness that you put on. It tethers you to the tree. That way if your tree stand fails, you don't fall and get hurt. Something else that you really want to consider for your safety is a lineman's belt. When you're putting up a stand or taking one down or climbing a tree in general, they keep you tethered to the tree. That way your hands are free to work, but also you can't fall backwards. So that's something that's really important to have. There's tons of videos on tree stand harnesses and lineman's belts and things like that. So make sure that you check that stuff out and you're educated before you go climbing up a tree. Now, for the climbing system itself, there's several ways to hunt deer. You can hunt them from the ground, you can hunt them from a ground blind, but you, like me, are 90% of the time going to end up in a tree when you're chasing whitetails. And if you're talking about hunting whitetails from a tree, there's a few different options as far as getting up there. One is a fixed ladder stand. A fixed ladder stand is basically a ladder with a tree stand at the top of it. You go in, you hang your tree stand, and you leave it there, and then you walk to it every time you want to hunt, and then you leave it when you leave the woods. The benefits to that is you don't have to carry a tree stand in and out of the woods with you. You can set that up in a good spot, and it's there and it's ready. Another benefit to it is that deer kind of get used to it. As long as you don't overhunt it, they're not going to be spooked by the presence of that stand after some time. The cons to that are it's very, very hard to move and set up by yourself. So if you get to that tree stand and all the action is 100 yards that away, you've got to move that tree stand, and it's a little bit of a bear. So pros to that is it's super easy once it's set up, deer get used to it. Cons to that style are that it's not very mobile, and a lot of times deer movement shifts and you need to be able to shift with it. The next option for climbing up a tree is probably a climber stand. And a climber stand is not a bad option. It's basically a stand where the bottom and the top are used to actually climb the tree. And there's tons of videos out there on that. The pros to them is that they can be kind of lightweight. They're definitely mobile, so you can move from tree to tree. The cons to a climber stand is a lot of times they're kind of loud to set up, and more importantly, you have to be climbing a very straight tree with almost no branches, because they climb up the tree. If you get any kind of big branches or the tree's kind of crooked, it can make climbing that tree nearly impossible or impossible. So that's the pros and the cons to a climber stand. That brings us to the final option for getting up the tree, and as far as tree stands go, and this is what I use a hang-on stand and climbing sticks. In my opinion, this is the best of both worlds. They're lightweight and they're very versatile. You can get into almost any tree with them, and it doesn't like kill you to carry them in and out of the woods. So the climbing stick that I use is a Hawk Helium, and basically it operates, you put a strap around this Versa button right here, it goes around the tree and the other end connects to it. You tighten it down, you fold out these steps, and you can climb up the tree. These usually come in packs of 3, and 3 sticks will get you 16 to 20 foot high depending on how far apart you space them. This is the hang-on stand that I use. It's an XOP Vanish. It only weighs about 11 pounds. It's got a 2-contact system, so it's got 2 straps that keep you to the tree. It hooks to the tree the exact same as that climbing stick that I just showed you, and it's got a relatively good platform. The platform, once you get into the tree, is so you can stand up and shoot your deer. The seat is so you can sit down while you're waiting on them to show up. And that brings us to the last item on this video that we're going to cover, and that is the contents of your hunting pack. I recommend bringing a hunting pack with you to the woods. This is what I use. It could be a small backpack, a fanny pack, just whatever you can fit all your goodies in that you're going to take with you hunting. So I use something like this. It's got enough room for my camera and all my stuff. And then I'm going to run through my essentials. I'm kind of a minimalist, so this is the stuff that I carry with me on every hunt without fail. Sometimes I add more. But this is with me all the time, and we're just going to go through it in level of importance. First item in there is a compass. I can't tell you how many times this has saved my butt. I know a lot of people are using mapping on their phones and stuff like that. What if your phone falls in water? Or what if your battery runs out? You need to have one of these. I've gotten lost so many times, and then I finally started carrying one with me. I haven't gotten lost since I started doing that. You basically just walk a little ways into the woods, point it back to the truck, and you've got a general direction to travel if anything happens and you kind of get lost. So compass, make sure you carry one. The next item we're going to cover is a headlamp. A lot of times you're going to be going in the morning, you're going to be coming out in the evening. It's dark both of those times, and you're going to be setting stuff up in a tree, so you definitely want some light. I recommend a headlamp so your hands can stay free. These are also super handy if you manage to be successful and tag an animal. They're going to really aid in the recovery of that animal, so a headlamp is a must for me. Next item on the list, especially for you new bow hunters, and this should be a non-negotiable, is a rangefinder. Bow hunting is hard enough. You have to find where deer are. You have to pick a tree that gets you close enough that they don't know you're there, but you can shoot them. You then have to guess where they are, and then you have to make a good shot. This takes the guesswork out of how far away they are. And if you're new to bow hunting, your bow is usually going to have 4 or 5 different sights on it, 20 yards, 30 yards, 40 yards, 50 yards, 60 yards. The last thing you want to do if you've put in all that work to get close to that deer is make a guess and either miss that animal or wound that animal because it wasn't a good shot. So for new bow hunters, if you don't have experience guessing how far away that animal is, a rangefinder will drastically up your odds for success. I always carry one. An extra release. I can't tell you how many times I've had to go back to the truck or back home because I've gotten to my stand and I didn't have a release. And the way you sight your bow in, It does not work to shoot your bow with your hands after you've sat it in with a release. They just don't shoot the same. So it's inevitable. Everyone does this. At some point, you're going to go on a hunt, and this is so small that you're going to forget your release at home. So having an extra release in your pack can definitely save your morning or your afternoon hunt. This is the last item on my list we'll go over, and it is a small set of pruning shears. These, if you're hunting on the ground, are awesome for cutting out cedar limbs. They're awesome for cutting out thorn bushes. If you're in a tree, it gets rid of those pesky vines. It can actually quite easily get rid of branches as big around as your thumb, and it does so very quietly. But if you sit down and there's a knot in your back and you want to get rid of it, or maybe you need to trim a branch for a shooting lane, these are a really good quiet way to get that done. And there's something that they've been an MVP item in my pack for a couple of years now. So a small set of pruning shears probably wouldn't hurt nothing. Well guys, that brings us to the end of this video. This was just a basic video to show you some of the gear that you need that's not a bow and arrow. We'll cover that stuff in a separate video, but hopefully this video was helpful to you guys. If you have questions, and if you're new to bow hunting, I'm sure some of you do, drop that stuff in the comments. Shoot me an email, get a hold of me on Facebook. I'm more than happy to walk you through or talk to you about any of the questions you might have about some of this gear. Also, something new that I'm doing. I've got a link in the description to a shop, and any purchases made from that shop directly support the channel. They keep content just like this coming your way. So make sure if you like the video that you click that link and you check out some of the items in there. I got Wingbone Calls, turkey plaques, European mount plaques, state plaques. I got a lot of different cool stuff in there, so make sure that you check that out. That is the end of this video, guys. Like I said, I really hope it helped you out. I really appreciate you guys watching. Make sure you smack that subscribe button, and I will catch you in the next one.